Welcome to the podcast series Talking Success, connecting the global FinTech community. I'm Stacey Jafta, and today I'll be chatting with Louis Jauvin, Executive VP of People at Checkout.com. Checkout.com empowers businesses to adapt and innovate. Flexible solutions, granular data, and instant insights help global enterprises launch new products in new markets and create outstanding customer experiences. Hello, Louis. How are you?
Hey, Stacey. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you on board. Checkout.com has been on my radar for some time. You guys are doing such incredible things. How's your experience been there so far?
Well, it's quite it's been, I feel like a cat had multiple lives at Checkout.com. So, hard for me to wrap up, in a few minutes this last 8 years. But, it's been an amazing journey. I think one of a lifetime, and what I'm excited to share with you and anyone today, Stacey.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. Tell me about your career journey and essentially what led you to become Executive VP of People at Checkout.com.
Well, interesting question. I could obviously tell you that, I'm a people person. I grew up in a large siblings. I always loved to be a mediator to friends, etc. But
I love that.
But actually, I think it's mostly due to a series of events and facts, but more importantly, hard work and commitment. I will take things in reverse. I joined Checkout in 2013 as an HR specialist, and became head of people in 2018. So really, up to now, and halfway through 2021, I had the opportunity to witness and take a very active part in the Checkout.com amazing journey, growing the company from 20 people to 1,200 colleagues, from 2 to 17 offices, etc. Really, while taking over the people department in 2018, what I've done is really architected the people department around a very simple and agile structure to enable the company grow super fast, scale well, with obviously always a big emphasis on helping the company navigate change. Prior to Checkout, just to give you a tiny bit of flavor on where I'm coming from, obviously I think the accent tells a lot, but got a background in recruitment. In a global search firm, leading one at the time, and funny enough, very far away from the FinTech world because I was hiring exec leaders for global oil and gas companies operating in Africa.
Very different.
Indeed. But, at the time, the FinTech world, the payment world was a commodity, just as, oil and gas is, right? So it wasn't so different on that basis. And before to that, I've done a master's in management and behavioral leadership, studied in France, studied in Portugal, studied in Brazil. So really, I'll say that interest of anything around diversity, languages, culture is, grew a lot while I was traveling. And which potentially explain why my main hobbies today are anything around traveling, which was quite frustrated last year, and obviously
I can imagine.
But cooking as well, and trust me, I've used that time to sharpen my skills there.
What is your go-to meal? Tell us.
Oh, I think it depends really on the mood. It depends. Sometime I got really into fish lately. I've got the Ottolenghi. 3 books of Ottolenghi, and I'm really into that Middle Eastern type of food, very spicy, quite complex. But that's really my go-to food right now is anything Middle Eastern.
Yum. Okay, cool.
That's about my journey snapshot in 8 minutes or like 3 minutes.
So you started Checkout when there were only 20 employees. Now there's over 1,000. How has the culture changed, and how important is employer branding to the business?
Yeah, 20 people, I think, having 2 HR at the time says a lot. Many companies do not believe in getting HR in early, right? For X, Y, Z reason, I don't want to challenge that. Every company is different, has different requirements. But, our people with a cap, uppercase P has always been at the heart of everything we do at Checkout. And that was true when we were 20, it's now true as we are 1,200. And it will hopefully be true, and I'll make sure of that, when we reach 10,000 colleagues. So really, the culture, and then the employer branding, because they link. I mean, we built ours very organically, so building our branding based on our culture, on our values. So speaking of our values, what you might have seen on our website or heard elsewhere, Aspire, Excel, and Unite, have been the same since the very beginning. This has always helped us guide, everything we do at Checkout. And then really, I think the way you approach culture in general is to accept and understand that it's a living and breathing thing, right? Don't go try frame it too much. Don't go try use it just as a, fancy words to print at the back of a t-shirt or in the lobby of your building, right? You need to come up with those compelling values, but really involve your colleagues to agree on what they mean for us, right? Move away from also quickly from just those being philosophical beliefs, but seek quickly a level of tangibility to those, right? Embed them through the entire process. And by process, I mean all the way from, for candidates, through value scorecards, how we assess candidates, part of the interview process, but also into different principles that are part of our competency profile. How do we, assess, review, promote our colleagues, equally not only based on I would say competencies, but also based on those values. Also embed them, I would say, all the way up to all the leadership training you build. How do you build the leaders of tomorrow in alignment with our values? And finally, transitioning those philosophical beliefs, those values into operating principles to really act as guidelines for our day-to-day decision-making, right? And really, once you have that, you need to also have a team that curate culture, right? And don't make that the role of an HR team only. Don't make that the role of, obviously your ambassadors are all your leaders across the organization. But we've built at Checkout.com a Culture Champions Network. So,
what does that entail?
Well, employees across offices, across department, volunteer to join this network, they are basically the curators of our culture. And, they meet on a weekly basis, spend time, and they are the one that says how organically we need to evolve and scale this culture. And that's not something we dictate from the top, but rather it's a bottom-up type of approach.
That's important. How has the culture changed since the pandemic, maybe working remotely? I know that many businesses' cultures involved collaboration, maybe getting drinks after work, or everyone on a Friday comes in and does activities together, not having that be possible. How have you seen the culture change, and what have you implemented to replace that?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think obviously it will be I'll be a fool to say that we've managed to keep that intact. It's for us. It was not just about working remote, right? It was also, you need to consider that we've double sized just in 2020.
Exactly.
Right? From 500 to 1,000 colleagues. So really, and obviously remotely. So on top of ensuring that the business can keep going, keep running with the right velocity, and that means supporting our people, all the way from the way they set up, the way they communicate, to educate them on how to kind of work remotely, make the best use of different channels of communication, synchronously, asynchronously. I think on the cultural angle, we had to think very innovately, right? To ensure that this culture we've built, we've embedded, called Still Feel virtually, rather than just in our offices. The good news is, because we've embedded that throughout the entire journey, I think that helped a lot by, discussing and thinking about those elements early in the journey at Checkout.com. But what did we do concretely? Also, we've created a CKO wellness community where, with many members on a channel where we curate a lot of different events around mental, physical well-being, where people, take turn and talk about the experience with that. So that, a great community. We've also built a well-being team. That's, something we've always invested a lot in, but not as a function. We've kind of, I would say, officialized that. We've institutionalized it. We've done, a lot of virtual events, end of year party. That was an amazing success. We make the best use of different features on Slack, like donut dates, where, you match with random new joiners to get to know each other, kind of a buddy program if you want.
That's incredible.
And I was, a lot of us in the exec team will really make time for that. And obviously all the kind of usual support about ergonomics at home, about equipment schemes, obviously all these little thoughts that make the difference about wellness boxes. We've sent Kindles to all our employees for Christmas to ensure they could read books.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think, investment in knowledge pays the best, interest, right? So I think that was important. Obviously the occasional swag, but it was about going above and beyond just giving that swag, but rather, spend time and curate something that is tailored to our culture and to our people versus trying to do like everybody else and just, think that by sending a nice t-shirt while people are, or a branded mask would be enough to care. And obviously doing that in a growing environment, 7 unique locations, imagine different cultures. You need to always adapt. Once again, as I said, you need to approach things in a very tailored way. And obviously employer branding is playing and has played, but is still playing a key role in a world where we can't connect with our candidates. We're fully remote. We've accelerated the pace of hiring like crazy. So, employer branding is really here to showcase who we truly are internally, whether we work in an office or from home, and being the ambassadors of that culture to the world out there.
You're clearly ramping up at such a rapid pace, and you have experience working for a big recruitment firm, and you're now leading an internal recruitment team. Many internal recruiters aren't big fans of firms for multiple reasons, which we can get into. Checkout doubled in size over the last year. Did you use firms during this process? And if so, how did you choose who you wanted to work with?
Well, obviously, I come myself from that world, right? Obviously, I didn't make a long career there, enough to, I guess, get familiar with other operates. Obviously, there's been a massive shift in the perception of those companies, in the way they operate from 2013 to today. So I would not say I know this environment. That would be unfair. But what I'll say is that the majority of our recruitment today is done, and really has always been done in-house, right? Which is honestly our preferred method of bringing people into the company. We have our recruitment team. They are really checkout.com expert and great ambassadors and really trusted advisors to our hiring managers. So really, when I've started building the recruitment function at Checkout, that team was also in charge of onboarding our new employees, whether it's 3-6 months probation, etc. Because to me, a successful hire should be measured way later down the line, than just on the actual hiring thing. So today, obviously, we need to be a bit pragmatic, because in a world where we play both the quality and the quantity game at the pace we grow, meaning that we need to build that complexity incrementally. And that's why I've hired recently a very senior talent leader that joined my team and will really kind of reshape, scale the recruitment function that will be way more complex, looking after obviously splitting tech, non-tech recruitment, having a sourcing team, a coordination team, a talent ops team, the employer brand team we just mentioned, and get that all together. So to your point, yes, we do sometimes use external firms, but we're talking about very, very specific roles, whether they're executive search, whether they're extremely rare profile, whether they're about new markets we've never been into first, we need a bit of, get into that network, or because simply they are confidential search, as you can imagine. And finally, today, to help us really during those extremely high volume and busy times, sometimes having a short assignment to different partners is helpful. But to your question, how do we decide to work with one organization, not another? I think, we look at the organization values, ways of working, and how they approach really candidate experience to help our decision. Ultimately, what I'll say is that we partner with people. We do not partner with businesses.
I too had a very negative opinion on recruitment firms, and my CEO, Darren Franks, sat with me and went over Talent in the Cloud's way of doing business. We probably had around 4 interviews just discussing how, as an executive search firm, we have the mission of closing the gender gap, our method of searching that involves integrity. And something I really cared about was not just shoving CVs down clients' throats, but rather having that extra layer of vetting and sending fewer candidates, but with video interviews. A lot of businesses are looking at what are the cheapest firms to work with. Let's just say you get what you pay for. You did make a great point. Partner with people and not businesses.
It is, and as you rightly said, I think it's not about saying that recruitment firms are no, they're great. I mean, I've come across some excellent firms and excellent people, but I think it's more about we believe in building everything in-house. We know we own our technology 100%, and same goes for everything we try to achieve. We try really to build that in-house, and that's more from a philosophical angle than just a way to say we don't believe in agencies, if that makes sense.
And scaling that quickly must have required new training programs. How did you manage onboarding? What did your training programs look like?
Well, it's really, I think, again, it really depends. We have different layers when it comes to training. I think, an amazing onboarding process where people can access a lot of information, data, videos. We've digitalized all our content, organized drop-in session. We have a strong culture of collaboration, sharing, etc. So there's a lot that is obviously tackled in-house on the learning side. But now when it comes to specifics, we have obviously, learning policies with, learning days, with actual budget, with a process in place that can answer any type of needs, from, certification to very specific training to a bit more attending different conferences. We're quite strong there. Obviously, it's all about giving a level of flexibility to people. We never want to come with this kind of generic training thing, because then everybody starts thinking the same, and that's when you start innovating, right? So it's really about offering a tailored approach. Same goes for leadership training, right? How do we train the leaders of tomorrow, from whether it's from first-time managers to kind of experienced managers to coaching? I wrote a funny article on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, rightly about that. It's a post that you can find, but it explained how we've built our leadership program, for example. But it was really about building that, starting with asking the questions of what you need to achieve, what you seek as an organization, right? Because if you go out there and you use that third-party provider that come with this very generic thing, you're going to end up just, building the same managers that elsewhere. So it's about starting with understanding what we're trying to achieve, what we're seeking, what success looks like for us, and then what our values, who we are, and start really shaping those different training programs based on who you are, and then find a provider, because the challenge is, I suppose that the challenge is you will be tempted to run programs in-house fully. Especially for growing businesses, really, moving at the lightning speed like us. However, it's also and always important to challenge your own thinking. So seek for that external support. That's a great way to do that, right? Delivers a very scientific, market-proof angle that will really reassure your colleagues and leaders. So, but really, I say, build that yourself. Find a provider that can work with you based on what you want, and don't impose their way of thinking. And then, we've delivered, many weeks programs containing, 18 different modules, one-to-one coaching, psychometrics testing, upward feedback, back weekly assignment, and around-the-clock support. So we've really delivered unique and extremely powerful training inside the organization today. So I think that's one of our strengths, is really this training element.
Yeah, because I was going to say a tailored approach is extremely time consuming, and that's what we're doing currently, is very tailored programs to each person, and it yields great results. But I can't imagine 500 people onboarded in the last year. You can't do a tailored program per person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Obviously, I think you need to segment. You segment, right? When I say tailored, it's about saying, look, at least, you segment based on, a bit of calibration. based on the department, the location, the gap. You make that communicate a bit with your talent calibration performance, with your priorities, and so yeah, it's obviously not tailored to the individual. That's also why we give full flexibility to individuals to make a business case when they identify a specific training that could be useful to them out there. Discuss that with a manager and have a full support of the company when that has been discussed. By tailoring is involving people in that decision making versus building everything in house. What I say is like on a more traditional, not traditional, but like training such as leadership training, such as very specific about let's say for engineers, which is large part of our population, about specific skills. We curate a bit the market and suggest something and make it our own and suggest that to this population.
We were also talking about the two types of layers you've identified that has led to success. Layer 1, the quick wins, and layer 2, where you use your brain a bit more and identify patterns. Firstly, can you elaborate on this philosophy? And secondly, what patterns have you discovered and what was the impact?
Oh, right. That's an interesting question. Okay, right. So I would not really call that a philosophy, right? It's, for the reason that I don't believe in following, what best practices are, because we don't really build we don't build the companies of tomorrow, using the recipes of yesterday, right? Yeah. So really, I think first it's important to explain you the context in which we operate, and because to me context defines everything.
Of course.
Not a specific philosophy. I think our CEO always says that we play the infinity game. Right. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second one is that I am myself a visual learner. We all have our tricks and tips. Mine is, I'm a visual learner. So, again, not really a philosophy, but rather a mind process of mine, regarding how I'm tackling very ambitious goals. So these two layers I've mentioned to you the other day are basically, I would say first, set the North Star, as high as possible, very aspirational. That's really your second layer. This is really your strategy, if you want, right?
Okay.
Then you really balance that out by, I'll say, singling out and not mixing up with a list of what I call urgent topic day to day, which is your first layer, very operational, very tactical, not strategic. And really your ability to move away from this first layer, operational and tactical, is to identify patterns, automate quickly the day-to-day and free up some time so you can really shift and focus on that second layer. So obviously both must be connected narrative-wise. Narrative is key here. So again, I'll give you an example, right? When I'm swamped with work myself, I always like to take a little step back and map out everything on a kind of important versus urgency matrix. And then clearly that helped me already in a very simplistic way. I'll say my top left box is my second layer. My lower right box is my first layer. So it's really about, approaching that with a method. And yeah, so those are, to give you analogies, if that help, I'll say your first layer is your actual KPI, and your second layer is the company vision and mission, right? Your first layer is your operating principle, the day-to-day guidance on how you make decisions and act, while your second layer is your actual value and belief, right? So that's really how I approach everything. And really I try to coach my team on splitting the two and not mixing up, because it's important that just to communicate, it's an iterative process, right? I believe in iteration, continuous iteration, but I think it's important to be able to isolate those two, make sure they communicate, but isolate in the sense of how you approach them, and not mix up. That's a tip of mine versus an actual philosophy. Don't expect me writing a book about it, because I didn't learn HR by the book, and I don't believe in HR by the book anyway. So there won't be any copyright on that on that too.
Louis, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Where's the best place for listeners to reach you?
Cool. Thank you very much. Well, look, any question, there's obviously a lot more I can share, but 8 years I could be very talkative. So feel free to drop me a little note on LinkedIn. Easy to find me in Louis Jauvin for With the Action. I'm sure you'll get the detail on the podcast. But and yeah, if otherwise, as you understood, we're hiring a lot. We're always keen to go and connect with like-minded people. So feel free to engage, interact with us. You can go on our career page. You can either contact me via email at louis.jauvin@checkout.com and ask pretty much anything, and because we are always keen to connect with anyone out there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Louis.
Thanks to you. Have a nice day, Stacey. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Talking Success, Connecting the Global FinTech Community. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at Talent in the Cloud. And if you're interested in exec talent, expanding your team, or you yourself are looking for a new, exciting change in your career, check out our website, talentinthecloud.io.